Hello, everyone. Welcome to Thinking Out Loud Live, where we discuss our thoughts on specific topics, but mostly about mental health and entrepreneurship. This was available because of Start Day One, which is a nonprofit foundation for mental health and suicide prevention with a more proactive approach in helping people instead of being reactive like most organizations where they actually wait for you to have suicidal tendencies or mental health issues. We believe in reaching out to people beforehand, and that's why we have this video. So we have different speakers and just kind of discussing different topics that can actually help people in advance before you get there. So Kristen's going to introduce our next guest.
So today we have Emily Adams. Emily is coming to us from Indiana, and she is a former Amish. She broke free from that. She is a power lifter, a life coach. She's an inspirational speaker. She's got a blog. She's got courses. She's got a podcast. She's a writer. She's got a very interesting story. So everyone, please welcome Emily Adams.
Thank you. What's going on, Emily? How are you?
Good. Thank you so much for that introduction. I appreciate that.
Well, we did our intro. If you could just kind of give us your intro about.
Tell us who you are.
Yeah, tell us about where you're coming from, how you even got into this kind of mental health space, and what you're doing in the future.
Yeah. So I am coming from Indiana. I was born and raised in Indiana, and I was born and raised Amish, so I left at the age of 17. And for all those that watch the reality shows and they're wondering, like, is that really true? Some of it is true, others not so much.
Oh, wow.
So in the Amish culture, it is a very male-dominant culture. It's not a culture where women or any kind of females have any leadership or any kind of say-so or any kind of empowerment. And growing up, kind of they don't have careers or anything like that. Their path is go to school. After they only go to 8th grade. So after 8th grade, they're at the age of 14, they get out of school, they start learning how to cook, clean, sew, and at 16, they start dating, and they're usually married by the time they're 18 and 19, and they start having a family then. So that's kind of the path for the Amish girls. So growing up, it wasn't something that I started questioning a lot of different things at the age of 13 and 14 and realized that this was not something that I could see myself doing for the rest of my life, and started questioning a lot of different things. So at the age of 17, I made the decision, knowing that if I made the decision to leave, I was not going to be able to come back at all. And I was leaving everything behind. So I left in the middle of the night and
left. Wow, so you just bailed.
I just bailed
out. You snuck out.
Yes.
Oh, wow.
There's another story of that, of like, so when people know that you're starting to leave the culture, your family first starts sitting down with you and having these conversations, this is wrong. It's a very religious culture. And then the church starts coming to you, and it starts to become like a brainwash tactic for them to get you to stay. So there'll be things like, if you leave the Amish, you can never go to heaven. You're not saved. You're automatically going to hell. God is going to put so many bad things in your life. And like, it's like a brainwash tactic. So that's where I learned at that age how to block out shit. And when I say I'm really good at blocking out, sometimes I'm too good at blocking out stuff. But I was at that mindset of, what, I can't stay here and continue with this. Mm-hmm. So therefore, I'm going to block out what I don't want to hear, and I'm out. So I left, went through a culture shock, and I had planned on leaving and getting my education. But instead, at 18, I became pregnant with my oldest son. And in the Amish culture, once you become pregnant, you're marrying that guy no matter what. And there's no divorce in the Amish culture as well. So I became pregnant. I was like, hey, we've got to get married. He was on board, got married. year and a half into the marriage, realized after being out of the culture, this is not normal. The marriage was very controlling and verbally abusive and not a healthy relationship at all. Was going to leave and file for divorce, but then found out that I was pregnant with my second son. So I stayed for another 2 years, partially because I was scared of becoming a single mom and going through with a divorce and all the mental side of, if I divorce, I'm already on this bad path and God is never going to take me back. Mm-hmm. So I'm just digging deeper. And then finally I was like, you know what? I've already messed up bad enough. I might as well keep going. Like, it doesn't matter, right? There's no turning back. So yeah, I filed for divorce and became a single mom. And that's really where I started thinking about who I am as a person and what I want out of my life. And I knew I was always called to do bigger things with my life and be an inspiration to others, but I just didn't know how. So I thought by, going to college, decided to enroll in Purdue University and was determined to get my degree in 4 years as a working full-time single mom. And the student advisor told me that's not going to happen. It takes 6 years. And I told her, I don't have in 6 years. We're going to do it in 5 or at least 4. And graduated in 4 years. So one of my biggest life achievements, to be able to walk across the stage and have my boys actually see that mom went from an 8th grade education, which was actually a 6th grade in the public schools, got my degree and landed my corporate job and had gotten married again. And it looked like I had everything on the outside, had my corporate job. Meanwhile, had joined a gym, had lost 65 pounds, started powerlifting, and looked like I had it all from the outside, but not necessarily. And 2 years into my next marriage, he decided that he fell out of love. So now I was going through divorce number 2. And, there was a lot of bitterness, anger, and hate and everything else that goes with divorce. And I was like, you know what? I'm done. Like, I am going to go on this path of self-discovery. I'm going to find out who I am and what in the world I want. So I started doing a lot more of mindset work. I started watching a lot more motivational videos of just plugging into something positive. And I was always a positive person anyways, no matter what, I could stay positive. And my friend had tried to introduce me to meditation then. And I was like, nah, powerlifters don't meditate. And she was like, but you're really an angry person. I was like, no, I'm not. We always get defensive. So yeah, fast forward, I went on a momcation and everybody thought I was having a mental breakdown because I was going on a vacation by myself and I signed up to go skydiving. And so they're like, are you okay? Do you need to talk to somebody? And I'm like, I'm fine. But in that moment, I realized I needed to find out who I was and find myself. Yeah. And when I did, I realized that the corporate job was not serving me. And now I was called to do something bigger with my life. And I came back and had some discussion. And finally, one of my best friend goes, you should mentally try to quit your job. Just mentally, like, don't do it, but just mentally do it and see what happens. And freaked out for a little bit. But then I realized it felt so good. It felt so right. And I was like, that's my answer. I'm like corporate. I'm done with the corporate world. I can no longer make a difference and I can no longer do what I want to do. And I was miserable. Mm-hmm. So left the corporate world and thought I was going to be a nutrition coach because that's what I'm really good at, teaching nutrition and working out. But I realized I was not in alignment with me. And I took a step back. And during COVID of this year it was a blessing. It was so much time for me just to sit back and really evaluate my life and like, what do I want? And, I know that I'm no longer in the corporate world. What am I really called to do? And I started this 21-day meditation challenge. And I was open partially because I was like desperate because like I need something in my life, like something's not fulfilled. During this meditation challenge, it was a simple challenge. It wasn't anything crazy. And I listened. I was being still and I was listening to myself. And I started finally having a connection. Like I was connecting with a higher person. Like it was now, it's God, right? It was a higher power. Mm-hmm. And then I realized, man, I've got all this religious stuff in me. And like everything was like really resisting. So I completely rewired the religious side and got rid of religion in general and went the spiritual route. Mm-hmm. And completely changed my life, changed the way I think. the way I operate, changed my parenting and everything. So that's kind of like the short version of like how I came to this today. And now I just am very passionate about teaching other people. Your minds and your thoughts are so powerful. Have them work for you instead of against you. And you can pretty much make your minds and thoughts do anything you want them to do. And it's just like manifesting. You're constantly manifesting, whether it's good or bad, or you believe in manifesting or you don't. You're constantly attracting something. So why not let it be something good? So that's kind of my life coach. And then started writing a book and launched my podcast, which is around inspire, empower, and impact, because that's my life vision and kind of what I speak on. So that's a long version of an introduction.
Well, yeah,
That's
thank you for
great
the
and
intro.
very interesting.
Yeah, definitely. So just for people that don't know, I will explain a little more Start Day One because it kind of so it relates with what you're saying. The reason we call it Start Day One is we're trying to change people's perspective from dreaming of one day to starting day one. Most people are actually very overwhelmed because of how much they need to change, but really they just don't know where to start. And so we said start day one means there's this day two, day three, day four, and so on. We're just actually trying to change your perspective so that you can make the decision to start day one. And, obviously with your experiences, you did that plenty of times, whether it was the college, whether it was leaving your marriage, raising your kids. I mean, those are just all, you're just a product of your decisions, right? That's what they always say. We're actually now reading this book, Personality Isn't Permanent, which is really awesome. And it's really just kind of emphasizing that people think that they are stuck in this one identity and their personality. You have these personality tests like, oh, I'm an extrovert, so I'm never going to be that, or I'm an introvert, so I can't talk in public. And this guy has studies that is proving that that's not the case at all, that everyone can actually change. So it's very empowering because people always try to take away that power of decision, and they think like, oh, it's just fate and I'm just kind of on for the ride. It's on the track and that it never veers off the way I want to. It's not like a car where you can drive. And to me, the more you think that way, the less fulfilling life is going to be, because it's like playing a video game with only one play, and you go through it and that's it. You have no control. Like, why even control? You might as well just watch it, right? And so it's interesting what you've gone through. And one of the biggest things we tell people is that everything starts with a decision. Everything starts with a decision, and everything else just follows. The same way when you left your job, actually,
when you left the Amish.
When you left the Amish country, I mean,
like you made a decision and then you pieced out in the middle of the night. Like,
yeah,
that had to have been terrifying.
That's
right?
a big. Can you just tell us real quick, what was your perspective that made you decide, like, I got to get out of here? Because this very recent, we were just talking about this, that usually when we tell ourselves statements, you tend to kind of look for excuses like, I have to leave this job, or man, I got to get out of this Amish country. But when you do that, you start going like, but I don't know anything. I don't really know that. But when you ask yourself,
start making excuses.
How the hell am I gonna get out of the Amish country? That's a whole different ball game now. And all you do is come up with solutions to your questions. But I'm curious, what was your mindset when you finally made the decision, like, to go?
Yeah, so it didn't happen overnight at all, and I would say that it was kind of over time. Things just kept coming up as to why I no longer fit in this community, and I am not a rule follower. Mm-hmm. And this was a very restrictive community. It told you what kind of shoes, what kind of socks, what kind of dress. Everything had a rule. It was like everything was so rule driven. And then there was so much of the judgment around it. So every time something came up and, I used to get talked to because, hey, your dress is too short, or you did this, you did that. And it was kind of that breaking point at 16 with going to the youth gathering. I had got caught drinking and smoking, which is not allowed. And in that moment, I got grounded, and because somebody tattled, it happens. But it was kind of like, it's all these other people are doing it, but I felt like I was so singled out.
Yeah.
And then I had lost one of my friends in a buggy accident, and in her funeral, there was some very religious things said as far as like going to heaven and that kind of thing. And I thought, if we serve a God of love, we say this community serves a God of love, but yet we sit here and we judge and we say all these different things, and there's so much hate and not love.
Yeah.
Then what's the point of staying?
Yeah.
Because it's really not separate from the rest of the world, right?
Yeah.
It's all the same thing. It's just in a different category.
Yeah.
So then I was like, like I'm out. And then I started just really looking about reasons like why to leave.
Yeah.
And, I was tired of going to church for 3 hours, and I was tired of like doing all these things and following all these rules. And I was like, I'm just done. Like I don't want any more of it.
Right. Right. Yeah. It's funny because, listening. So, because every time like we've talked to people, every time I've seen videos and stuff, it always seems to stem back about people's perspectives.
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny because I'm hearing it, and it's just like, your perspective was, well, if we're putting up so much hate in this, that's kind of what changed you. It's just like, well,
it's contradicting. It didn't
make
any sense.
It's so contradictory that you're just like, well, that doesn't make sense. I might as well find out what's out there then. If I know what this is here, but how am I going to know? So that's really interesting to hear that he did that. And it really just takes a decision, right? I know you said you didn't, it was over time, but it was a decision made, but over time, you figured it out. You
had to devise a plan, right? You had to figure out how to get out.
Yeah, because I tell people, when I say decide to quit your job, I'm not saying quit tomorrow. What I'm saying is, or even with relationships.
Well, just like you did with your job.
Yeah.
Mentally quit. Don't actually quit. Mentally quit for a minute.
It's the same thing with relationships. You got to leave them. I'm not saying leave tomorrow. What I'm saying is once you make that decision to leave a job or a relationship, all of a sudden your mindset completely changes because the decision's been made, and it was going to go this way, but it went, you know what? It goes like this automatically. And I always tell people it's automatic. It's not something you think about. Once you make the decision, all the solution starts popping up in your head. So you're not there when you quit. When you decide to leave a job, you don't have to plan like, well, before I leave my job, let me plan. I have to just get my resume out. No, you don't even do that until you say, you know what, I'm going to leave this job. But once you do that, all of a sudden your boss is less annoying because, you're out. So you just go, yes.
You're mentally out. Yeah, you're mentally out.
Yes, sir. Of course I'll do that anytime. You're actually even a better employee, right?
Yes.
And then, but you're really just planning it out, and you're actually going like, all right, where am I going to submit my resume? Who am I going to work with? All back in the back of the scene. You're not quitting. Same thing with relationships. Mm-hmm. She went through basically something similar. You can kind of elaborate.
I had an amazing lifestyle. Mansions, yachts, private jets, chefs, all that stuff. I had everything. But I was in a very abusive relationship. He was just a horrible human being. And he just wasn't a nice person. He just wasn't a good person. I've never known him in the 16 years I was with him. I've never known him to do anything for someone else completely selflessly. Like never, not once. And so everything was about him. So I knew I needed to leave. And once, and I hated him for probably the last 6 to 8 years I was there. And like I said, this was 16 years. This was a long time. I hated him for a very long time, but it took me a long time to figure out once I decided I'm out, all of a sudden he was so much less annoying to me. And I was just like, whatever, don't care. Just water off a duck's back, didn't care. And I made my little plan and I did what I had to do. And, I left with nothing. the clothes on my back and my cats. And that was it. But, once I made that decision, all the steps just fell right into place.
Right.
And it was just, see you later.
And it takes some
Bye.
time, but it's funny. Like once you make that decision, all of a sudden everything will follow. And
Making the decision was hard. But once I made the decision, it was nothing.
And people always say when situations like that, they always say like, oh, it's because you had enough. And one of the biggest things that came to me like, I don't know, probably a year ago, enough isn't an amount, enough is a decision, because it's been enough. Like, it was enough 5 years ago. Like, I don't know what you're talking about. You just finally left.
Yep.
And it's funny to hear that, because then all of a sudden it changed people like, oh yeah, I guess that makes sense. Like, yeah, you've just been too busy making up excuses this whole time. And the big, the examples that we use for about it being automatic, I talk about like, people always say there's no time or money, but whenever your best friend gets married, all of a sudden you tend to make it. How? Because time and money showed up. How? Nothing changed. You didn't win the lottery.
You made a decision.
Yeah, and all it was, you made a decision, because what happens first is you change your perspective. And you go, well, I don't have time or money. But then your perspective is, this is just a one-time event, and that's my best friend. It's supposed to be once in a lifetime kind of thing. And so you go like, you know what? I gotta go. And then you go. So you call off out of work. And then the next thing is the money part. And then you're like, well, it's a year from now, so I'll make it. And I tell people it's the same exact process for that vacation you keep yapping about. Same thing for losing weight, right? Like when people, I'm sure what do you tell your people with nutrition and stuff like that, the powerlifting? I know you got really heavily into that. Actually, you know what? Let's talk about how you even got into powerlifting.
Yeah.
From Amish to powerlifter.
Yeah, that's way night and
I
day.
mean, there's people that are not Amish does not go to powerlifting.
They don't even go to the gym. So
Right.
that's like way, totally.
What
different side of the
happened
spectrum.
there?
Yeah, that's funny because no one in the Amish community works out either.
Yeah, you
So
lost 55 pounds too. That's a lot.
Yeah.
yeah, so I actually instead of going to counseling and therapy after my divorce, I was like, nah, I don't need that. I might as well go and get in the best shape of my life. I have 2 boys and I want to be able to keep up with them. And I was very intimidated when I walked in the gym and I got a 24/7 access where I could just walk in the middle of the night or whenever I wanted to and work out by myself. And then I started running and I did Spartan races. And the 1 year I did a double trifecta. And it showed me like the mental game. You had to mentally prepare yourself to run this 15 to 20 mile run with obstacles in it, which the obstacles and the signs lied the entire time. It would say you're at mile 7, but you might have been at mile 12. So you never knew when you trained for this.
Wow.
So yeah, I lost a lot of weight through Spartan training, and then decided I went to the Arnold here in Columbus, Ohio, and walked up to the USPA Federation booth. I had no idea what powerlifting was. Strictly walked up to get a pair of knee sleeves. And little did I realize I was talking to the president of USPA Federation, which I compete in now. And I'm also a state judge for USPA Federation for powerlifting. And he was like, you powerlift? And I was like, no. And he was like, well, you should look into it. You know, it's a really empowering community. And he gave me contact for people that train here in Indiana. And I hooked up with them the next weekend. And I saw like a competition. I was like, yeah, I'm hooked. So when I started training, it became like so eye-opening. I was squatting like 200, deadlifting like 200, and I could barely bench 100. But when I started training, like these numbers just kept going up. And I was like, man, like I'm strong, like not only physically, but mentally. Like I started gaining so much confidence. I started, having a voice, having an opinion, and starting standing up for myself. And when I competed, the first time I competed, it was so empowering to get on a platform and not have to worry about your body shape or size, because it doesn't matter in powerlifting. You follow the commands, and that's that. Yeah. So when I started powerlifting, I was like, I want to one day have 1,000 pound total, because that's a stretch for my weight class. That's like athlete level.
Yeah.
And I was partially
I'm not
driven.
an athlete.
I was partially driven by a personal trainer that had told me I'm a mom, so I can't be an athlete. So that kind of drove me to
Yeah,
I'm going to be this
Huge.
athlete. So in December of 2019, I actually reached 1,013-pound total.
Wow.
And what I realized in powerlifting and this competition in 2013 is the mindset I had going into it. I had made up my mind and I trained like this the entire time. 400 squat, 400 deadlift, 200 bench minimum. That was my mind going. And anytime I would hear, but what if you get a 380 squat? I was like, no, that's not happening. And I would automatically just squash the thoughts because I knew, like, going into this, if I trained hard enough, I knew I could get there. And I was so focused and didn't talk to anyone in the competition. My best friend was my handler. She's also my coach and writes all my programs. She called all my numbers. So I was walking up to the platform. I didn't even know what was on the bar. And on my last deadlift, because that was the last lift I had, I knew I reached my 1,000 pounds or plus. And when she told me it was 1,013, I was like, whoa, I'm not going to retire now. I'm going to go. I qualified to go to drug tested nationals, which is in September of this year.
Yeah.
And I want to take the #1 spot in my weight class at a world level for drug tested. And but the powerlifting, some people say it was accident by me just going to get those knee sleeves, but it really wasn't. It was just a part of my story, and it empowered me. Lifting in general, for anyone out there, whether you're female or not, like, just start lifting. When you walk into that gym and you, even if it's at home, movement, mind, body, and soul connection, like, movement is everything. And it just makes you feel so much better. And I realized, like, it, not only am I very competitive, but I also, the strength that I got mentally and physically, and just now in an untapped world. So I don't have to stop at the 1,000 pounds. I can keep going and going as much as I want. And lifting in general just is very empowering. And for females, for me to finally be like, yeah, fuck yeah, I'm an athlete. Like, that was like, yeah, I'm an athlete.
Hey, I'm giving you a high five from here. That's awesome. And and that's what I love about you. So I always try to relate with people, right? Because that's the best way they kind of learn. And when you talk about the powerlifting, I mean, for people that just got on, I mean, for you to be in Amish world to powerlifting, completely different world. So obviously that opened a different world for you. And what I like, so I believe that everything stems all the time from the past. When people have issues, mental issues, things like that, a lot of it stems from the past. And sometimes because they didn't get the proper training. It's kind of like you powerlifting with no training and doing everything you went through with zero training. And it's going to be very difficult, especially when people are telling you, well, then maybe you're abnormal. Like, no, I never had training for this. So that's why I think sports is very important to instill in kids at a very early stage, because it teaches them, one, the biggest thing, I think, it teaches them loss. It teaches them the competitive,
how to lose.
To basically to progress. That's really what it is. To be better than you were yesterday, to be better than you were before, to be able to be mentored and ask for help, to be coached. Those are so many things that you learn just as a kid growing up. And that's why I don't like the whole idea of everyone getting trophies or, because it doesn't make sense. Because the reason is because now you're not teaching them. You're not educating them. All you're doing is spoiling them. I get it. It feels so good for them at the time of, getting a trophy. And it's like, oh, it's so great. Now they don't have to feel that. But I'm talking about they're in training right now. When they're 18, they get to feel that later. But right now they're in training. They need to feel the loss. They need to, kind of embrace that until they learn how to do that. It's going to be so hard when they get older. And I always say, like, the young adults have the highest rate of, like, it's the second leading cause of death for young adults is suicide. That's insanity. And I think it's because they just don't know how to handle loss as well today than they did before. Before we kind of we only talked, and now they're kind of doing, fake personalities, like, just a fake persona. And so I love, so when you're talking about that, I love how you said it just opened up a new world. So for people that are listening, it's like, you're never going to know the possibilities if you don't open yourself up to other possibilities. Right? So yeah, we can go together. So one of the things, what's cool is, so I don't know if it was a friend or she got this story from somewhere else. This is my aunt. She told me it was her friend, but I feel like I've heard it again, and I'm just like, wait a minute, that sounds kind of familiar. But anyway, she had a Black friend that said,
Oh, I know the story.
yeah, he said, you know, he became, actually, I'm not going to say what he became, just to give it a little suspense. So anyway, his mom was, they were poor. So the mom cleaned houses. And so she actually couldn't even read or anything. And so what she did while she was cleaning the houses, obviously the one that can afford that are rich people, big houses. So as she was cleaning, she decided, what the hell makes me so different from these people? She was just kind of curious. So she started looking at like what they do differently. She realized, wow, they don't really watch TV. And it's funny, the more successful, the more they don't watch TV. The ones that have the time to watch TV are the ones that don't. The ones that are slacking off and stuff, oh, all day, right? And so she started seeing that. So she would actually bring it home. So to teach the kids, again, it starts from when you're younger, right? So she started telling them, no TV. You only have this much time for TV and that's it. Get your homework.
She started
done.
giving them books instead.
Right. She started telling them, you got to read books. Like, go to the library. She would make them write things. And then she'll just kind of mark things. She can't read. So she just kind of like, oh yeah, this is good. Like, and so what happened is the kid, all grown up, because of the reading, he wouldn't have read on his own. Obviously, when you're in a poor situation, reading is the last thing you want. You want the latest, greatest video game, right? Especially when you're a kid and you can't afford shit. So he decided, like, after reading, he just saw like, wow, there's so many opportunities, there's basically infinite what you can learn and infinite what he might be able to want to do. And so he just opened his eyes. So read one book after the other. Well, the guy became the head of like surgeon something, whatever it is. I mean,
Neurosurgeon.
Yeah, some kind of neurosurgeon. And he was the head of the whole thing, watching over it. But the reason I'm talking about that is, you're talking about your training, like doing the Spartan race, doing the powerlifting. If without the Spartan race and without even kind of someone kind of going, hey, you should kind of try that out. Something as simple as that, and telling, with this whole kind of crazy racism going on now, whatever, it takes someone to go like, oh, what white privilege? No, you can do whatever you want. Once you instill that at a really young age, it changes you. It fucking changes you, because now your perspective just completely changed. All you thought was like, oh, I'm going to be in jail and this and killed, like, to go, oh, I'm going to be a fucking neurosurgeon. And so that's all it really takes. But it takes that getting out of your comfort zone. Like, people, she was in the Amish country,
you
man.
Were way out of your comfort
They didn't
zone.
run. They didn't have running shoes and going like, hey, can I borrow those weights? Like, and now she's powerlifting, and now you're like world competitive. That's
huge.
That's awesome.
That is a huge accomplishment.
That is really awesome.
Really,
So,
really is. Congratulations.
one of the things, we were thinking of what to title talking to you, right? And you told me like X at the BS. Another one you said was like saying no to things can maybe help you out. And so I ended up with blocking negativity to help your mental health. Can you kind of elaborate a little bit more and what you kind of want to mention about that?
Yeah. So learning how to block out stuff is very, very powerful. And it can help you in any situation. And one thing I will say is it's good and bad when it comes to blocking out things. It's very easy just to sit there and block out our kids. So be very choosy on what you block out. But if you're trying to make something different in your life and you're trying to start from day one and you want a brand new start, you can get really good at blocking out.
Mhm.
And what you have to remember is people are always going to have opinions, thoughts, whatever, because they usually project what they see in you. So if someone is jealous of something that you have, they're not going to be your friend because they want what you have, right? So that's just like when people project on you, like they say, oh, you can't do that, because they want to do it, but they themselves don't believe it. So when you have someone tell you that you can't do that or you can't make that change, you automatically get the choice just to zap that thought. Just no. And you get to choose whether you're going to believe that and let that be part of your story, or whether you're going to say, no, we're going to block that out. And in a couple of months, I'm going to look back and realize that I just rewrote my story because I said no. I blocked that thought. I blocked that out. I blocked that person out. And when you do this, you start to realize that you're going to be blocking out a lot of things. I do not watch TV as well. And you'll start learning to block out certain noises, certain voices, opinions that don't serve you. And when I mean that don't serve you, if they're not in your highest good, if your $1 million mindset wouldn't think these thoughts, then you don't need to be thinking them now. Right. So the next time someone gives you an opinion and you don't know if you should believe it or not, ask yourself, what would your $1 million self do? And if that $1 million self would be like, no, we can't think thoughts like that, and we don't think thoughts of failure, then you block it. And when you block, the more you learn how to block out things, the more you realize you have opened up space more for good and more positive thoughts, and then start feeding your brain with something that's empowering to you. So block out so you have more space to really empower your brain. And when you do that, you really just open yourself up to a whole new different mindset. It's just kind of like opening it back up to making it serve you.
Yeah. It's funny, talking to you when you're saying blocking, because I'm seeing you doing this, right? It just always brings me back when I tell people, like, sometimes to people's perspective, right? I had this experience. I have to tell you this one experience when I was snowboarding, and I was snowboarding in the glades, basically in the trees. They were probably like, I don't know, 5 to 10 feet apart. So when I would go in there, I would take 1, 2, 3 turns, and all of a sudden, fucking tree. And I'm just like, skirt. Fuck, that was close, And then I would crash, and then it takes such a pain in the ass to get up because snow is so deep in there. So your hand's going in. It's not, you're not just pushing off and all right, I'm up. So it's a really pain. And then I would get up and I would go again. 1, 2, 3, tree. Now I got to do that again. I'm like, this is annoying. This is not fun at all, But my friends just cruising, and I'm going, holy shit, how do they do that?
I suck at this.
Yeah, until my friend decides to stop and spray me, like, yo, you okay? After, snow, like, yeah, I'm good, dude, thanks. So I had to ask him, I was like, yo, how do you do this? Like, but I'm thinking, well, they've been snowboarding for freaking like 15 years. He used to live in Oregon, and, he's just that good. So, but I figured, why not ask, like, well, how do you guys go so fast? Like, it's insane what I'm seeing. Like, you guys aren't afraid of the trees. This is what he tells me. Stop looking at the trees. Look at the path between the trees. In my head, I just freaking laughed because I'm going, right. Of course, dude, that'll do it. But here I am. That's already twice that I've actually probably more than that I've already fallen so many times and I'm annoyed. So I've got nothing to lose. So I'm just like, all right, let me think about that. Path between the trees. Don't fucking look at the trees. Got it. So they're all gone already. So then I got up. I'm like, all right, path between the trees. Path between the trees. Go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I purposely stop at 10. I'm like, skirt. What the fuck was that? Like, what was that? And so all I'm thinking, I'm going, that is so crazy. And all I did was change my perspective on the whole situation. I did not get better in 3 seconds. The weather didn't change. So my skill level was the same. The weather was the same. I'm in the trees. There's no wind. There's no sun. nothing at all that made me even better, right? So how the hell did I do that? And so I realized the power of perspective, and kind of like what you're saying, what happens is when you focus on your path, kind of what you were saying, like if it's not conducive to what you're trying to do, when you have that kind of perspective and that almost like that purpose would be the best word, not goal. The purpose, you automatically block. Like you don't see the trees. You have to look at the path with your purpose, to your purpose, or to your goal, or whatever it is you're trying to become, you're trying to go to. Because as soon as you focus on that, the trees become invisible.
Mhm.
The things you're blocking automatically get blocked. You don't watch TV because you're like, man, I got to get this done. TV is just going to go do the reverse. It's looking at the tree. And it's funny, same thing with motorcycles, same thing with a lot of things where you don't want to look at what you're trying to prevent hitting. Because the more you look at it, the more you get hit into it. So when you focus on the negative shit in your life, you actually tend to go towards it. When you're in a bad relationship trying to avoid another guy like that one, you end up crashing again because all you did was try
Right
to
into
avoid.
his twin.
You tried to avoid the trees. You tried to avoid them instead of focusing on like, what do you want? What do you want to be? What kind of person? What person? Instead of avoiding this, avoiding that. Well, now you got this asshole. So and so it always brings me back to that. I love saying that because then it makes people understand quickly what I mean. And people that, when you're driving, things like that, like, you, especially motorcycle.
Stop focusing on your problems.
Yeah. When you
Focus on your path.
when you keep looking at what you don't want to hit, the more you're going to hit them. So same thing with your goals and all that stuff. And it's just nice to learn that. Right. And it's funny because with you, it's like you made the decision. So it always goes like this for me. You change your perspective. Once you change your perspective, allows you to freaking make a decision. Once you make that decision, everything else follows. That's when you start setting goals and all that stuff. And actually, even before that, it's like you should really tend to figure out your purpose. But to figure out your purpose, people are afraid, like, I really want to do this, but they stop themselves, whether to become an artist, to really enhance people's, open people up to their art, things like that. They don't go for it because they're scared, right? We're all scared. Like anything scary is always, it's risk reward, man. The higher the risk, the higher the reward. Like leaving the Amish country, I'm sure you always kind of compare like, holy shit, I would not be doing 1% of what you do now if you stayed. There's no way, right? There's no way. Do you ever kind of just think back at all ever and just kind of go like, no, I guess not regret. Obviously, it doesn't sound like you regret any of it at all. So.
No regrets.
Yeah, it's a little different,
Are you in touch with anyone still?
Yeah,
in that culture?
Yeah, so actually for the first couple of years I was not, but what happened, so I was actually the first one to leave out of my family. And then a year later, my sister had left. And 6 months after that, my other sister had left, and they both had children. They were the only grandchildren. So now all my parents' grandchildren had left. So then it became
they left with their kids.
Yes. So it became more of like, okay, we want to see our grandchildren. But in order to do that, there was some negotiation of like, we're the parents, we got to come with our children.
Mm-hmm.
So we slowly built that relationship back. So now, yes, we do have a relationship.
Wow.
And it's not something that happened overnight. And there was a lot of agree to disagree. So, but yeah, now we do have contact.
Oh, that's good.
That's good though. That's good. So you said before when we were talking that the COVID thing actually helped you change, kind of changed your whole little path right now that you thought you were on, and then you changed it to something not completely different, but different. So tell me a little bit more about how those decisions, the time and those decisions how that all works.
Yeah, Emily, what happened?
I would describe it as uncomfortable as fuck. And
Sounds about right. Sounds about right.
I say it because like you know, I always try to set a word for the year at the start of the year, and my word was faith. And I had no idea what I was doing when I set the word faith for 2020, because let me tell you, my faith has grown. But during COVID, you know, the world was at just like this fearful place. And I started from day one telling my boys, like, look, we're not buying into this fear. We don't listen to the news. We're not buying into the fear. We're going to have plenty of food. There was one time we thought we might run out of toilet paper, but we got lucky.
Yeah.
And we were okay with that. But what happened was during this time, you know, I thought, you know, I was going to be a nutrition coach, and this was what I was called to do. But everything just seemed so resistant. And I was like, you know, this isn't lining up for me. So one of my my mentors was like, take some time. You have all the time in the world. Just take some time.
Yeah.
And that was the last thing I wanted to do. I did not want to sit still. I did not want to listen. I thought that is, you know, I don't have the time. I can't do it. But I realized it was what I needed to do. And
Yeah.
during COVID, me and my boys, our connection and the way we communicate now has just opened so much. We have so much open communication, and I'm so grateful for it now, especially with all this racism going on.
Yeah.
I am now able to have these conversations with my boys. I am able to sit and we can talk and we can educate ourselves.
Yeah.
And COVID-19 allowed me just to sit back, listen, and it was like a curtain was revealed from my eyes. And I remember the one morning I was going on a walk, and all of a sudden I started seeing the beauty, like flowers.
Yeah.
I was never a flower person. I was like, nah, those things are ugly, whatever.
Yeah.
Like, let's move on. But flowers, like tree buds, sunshine.
Yeah.
And I was like, whoa, like I've missed this my entire life.
Yeah.
And just felt connected. And it was
You're
the
in
best.
present. You're in the present, you know?
Yes.
Right.
It's in the present moment. You're not worried about the future. And yes, the world was,
Yeah.
you know, I unplugged from the social media and just went within and just was sober. And I even remembered like just coming back from my walk and watching my two boys, the way they interacted. And I was like, wow, like they have some interesting conversations, like just to be present.
Yeah. It's funny when, you know, you're saying this, and I totally agree, because with the COVID-19, even though obviously it was a crazy, you know, situation, but if the damn internet just shut the fuck down, so many people would be so much better off. Because this whole racism craziness happening right now, it was like, whoa, why did this become totally something else? Because I'm pretty sure that's not how it started. But I think people were just going nuts being confined for so long, and all they did was consume negative content every fucking day. Like
all day, every day.
All they see is like this riot and this and this and racism and black and this and that. I'm like, oh my God, I must be a slave today. Like, what? Like, and I don't understand. Like, I mean, it changes people so much. Like, I mean, when you look at this stuff, because we're in a different place, when you look at it from a different angle, you almost kind of feel bad for what people are seeing. And you're going like, geez, how many people are seeing this? Like, this is not good. This is unhealthy. And it's creating bad versions of themselves, especially with COVID, the quarantine. Loneliness is one of the biggest kind of catalysts for suicidal tendencies, mental health issues. People don't understand that loneliness can actually fuck you up physically too. Like, it's worse than 15 cigarettes a day. It can give you stress. It gives you so many diseases, just loneliness, not stress, loneliness. It's like, wow, that's insane. And I think just a combination of all that, and then what they see on the internet, and the, you know, obviously the news and all that stuff really get into that. And I wish that's why we kind of do this, because if we could just put out this positivity,
something positive.
yeah, something we're going, because it's always going to be, to me, one of the most effective ways to really affect someone is randomly.
Mhm.
And that's why we kind of do this. So the purpose of Start Day One is we're trying to raise funds to proactively help people instead of reacting and waiting for them to be in trouble, to have mental health issues. So we raise funds to create content like this, and also to pay and fund other speakers like yourself, like Emily over here, to be able to speak to surrounding schools in her area, or
when we're allowed to go to school.
yeah, when we're allowed. So it kind of obviously got on hold, but that's what's necessary because we want to be proactive. And a lot of these schools, I mean, they don't call until there's a suicide in their school.
Mhm.
Then they go like, oh, let's get Emily. Isn't she like nearby? Like, but it's too late. It's called prevention. And, the one of the craziest things, this is just the past 2-3 years, maybe we've learned this, is that we're really feeding into the problems as professionals and society, organizations. We're all doing it wrong because we're always trying to remedy the result,
Mhm.
not the cause. The cause is always a verb, it's never a noun. For example, with the chaos today, the cause is racism. No, it's always a verb. Because I could be racist as hell and do nothing wrong to any person whatsoever. What's the problem? Nothing. You don't have to like me as long as you don't freaking hurt me or harm me in any way, right? Whatever. I'd rather you do that, But with in mental health, we don't treat it like a physical health, right? We're always trying to remedy the result. For example, with weight, right? So we can relate a little bit. Remedying the result means like, taking this pill to lose this weight, or, you got to do this and do this, but you're just trying to remedy the result. What's causing it? Like, because if you're eating like crazy, well, you're never going to lose that weight because you're eating like shit. Like, you can exercise all you want. Yeah, you could. But if you're still eating McDonald's every single day, that's going to be very difficult. Or you can change your diet, helpful, but you'll never really reach that level you're looking for if you're not lifting, running, or any exercise whatsoever. So if you're just sitting at home, it's also not going to work. So you really have to figure out what's causing that. And a lot of times when people talk about physical stuff, it always stems from your mental. The reason you didn't go to the gym, the reason you're still eating is all mental. And so I always try to always go back to the cause.
Mhm.
And today we're blaming it on a result. We're saying depression, anxiety, those are the causes now. It's an invisible fight. And that's why no one ever fucking wins. Because you hear people all the time, oh, my depression is so bad. I've been dealing with depression since 2016, Emily. And you're just like, wow, you know the exact year, huh? That's interesting. Like, but no one ever goes, because depression, anxiety, those are just emotional responses, just like happiness is. But
You're
no one
supposed to have them.
Yeah, no one walks around going like, oh, dude, I've had happiness since like 2012. Like, only because you haven't dealt with depression or anything. No one passed away, nothing bad happened to you. So I get it. And they have this perception that depression is now abnormal.
Mhm.
Like, it's weird. But it's to the point that they think it's abnormal, right? When they go, Robin Williams, rock stars, oh my God, how could they commit suicide and this and that? And, I've been saying this for the past 2 episodes, and I'm like, well, do you believe that money can buy happiness or not? They always say like, no way. Well, then why can't you believe that he's depressed? Like, just because he's got money, like, I don't understand. And that's someone with money, but poor you.
I was depressed and I had a lot of it.
Yeah, but then here's poor you who's not even making as much money there. Why is it abnormal for you to be depressed? It's just an emotional response. What the fuck are you thinking about? That's what I need to know first. What is causing you to be depressed? Because people think it's like this. Oh, you have depression. She's going to be depressed for 2 weeks now because she got depression. That's how they see this. They think, oh, I have depression. The doctors just go, oh, here's a pill for that. Here you go. You should be good. That's just remedying the result. What's causing the depression, though? It's always stems from the back. Is it because you forgot to forgive daddy? You couldn't forgive someone else? You couldn't let go of a pain? You have regrets? Something's causing you to be depressed. It's not just depressed. And I always get this thing like, oh, it's chemical imbalance. Like, all right, hold on. Let's talk about the chemical imbalance, because chemical imbalances are affected by your mindset. Everyone knows cortisol kicks in when a lion shows up, but your brain doesn't fucking know if it's a lion or you can't pay your bills. Like, it doesn't know the difference. So your cortisol goes nuts and does that chemical imbalance and really messes you up. So you get into that depressive mode. People know this too. That's what's crazy. You can smile even though you're not happy, but your body thinks you got to be happy. You're
You
smiling.
went through it, right? With your second divorce, probably with your first divorce and your second divorce. But yeah, you were there, so you know exactly what he's talking about.
And so when we give people that excuse and we actually feed the negativity with excuses, it harms people. When you say people like, oh, it's okay, it's because you have depression. You'll be all right. You have depression, you know. And it's just like, all right, thank you. But that doesn't help. It's like giving her a fucking trophy for depression. Oh, you have depression.
Here's the trophy.
There you go. And what that does is now you're not looking for the cause. You're not looking for to how to remedy it. It's really that's really causing a lot of problems. And with the physical thing, right? You don't tell your kids, hey, eat whatever you want. You know, we'll just look for symptoms of diabetes. And that's how they're treating mental health. We'll just look for symptoms of suicide. It's insane. And that's how we're doing things. And I've seen it happening in so many ways. The only way to solve the problem is to look at the cause or the influence, whatever that is, not the result. Everyone keeps looking at the result. Racism is just a result. If you really want to cure that, you need to figure out what caused the racism in the first place. If you don't figure that out, this is forever. You're going to keep trying to figure out a new law. That's insane.
That's why it's been going on.
And that's why I don't really agree with everything that's going on, because you guys are just talking about the result. So it's kind of useless. It's like, it's stupid. You're not really looking for a solution.
You remedied, you when you went through your second divorce, you said that was very, it was hard on you and stuff, and emotionally probably, but you've worked your way out of it. Did you seek therapy? You went to the gym instead, right? You worked yourself out of it in your own way.
Yeah. So I did go to the gym, and I will tell you one thing is I had to make that choice, and it goes again with that choice, because I could wallow in this world, because everyone's like, oh, I'm so sorry this is happening, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And I was like, no, fuck that. I'm moving on. Or I could sit there and allow everyone to pity me because this happened to me.
Mm-hmm.
And like, I had to mentally make that choice. I can either sit here and be depressed and not get out of bed, or I can be like, no, it's going to be the best life I've ever lived. And I made that choice. Like, no, I'm going to the top, and that's how I'm going to stay. And that's with like everything, right? You can choose which one you're going to pick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That's awesome.
And always, right, stems from the decision. Once you make that decision, and that's really, it's funny. It's something so simple. And
like, you're allowed to be depressed and all fucked up from it for a little while. That's like expected. That happens. You have to mourn that loss or what have you. But you can't just live there forever. Yeah. So, like you said, you have to, be depressed for a little bit, be sad for a little bit, but then you decided you were like, fuck this, I'm done with this. Yeah. And it's all it is being more aware too, right? Where you're at, your decisions, what could happen. You have perspective is this way or perspective is that way. And there's people that just fall in the trap. I'll never find someone else. That's it. So, right?
Plenty of fish in the sea.
Right. There's people that take this perspective instead of this way. And that's what hurts them, because now every decision will follow that perspective. Mm-hmm. If you think no one's there for me ever again, all of a sudden everything will follow. Mm-hmm. And you won't even look at people that would have been perfect. You just went, nope. It's because your perspective is that. With your perspective, it's just like, shit, fuck that. Like, I'm getting some, like I'm going to do this, like, and so, and it always kind of just starts from there. And it's cool to see, or so how do you help, you think, people? Give me a story of someone that you've kind of helped just change their perspective and like helping them make a decision and stuff.
Yeah, so I'm going to be honest with you. For those, if you're trying to help someone that does not want help, that's not going to work.
Mhm.
And I
Yep.
say this because that person you have to want help.
Yep.
And I was talking to one of my friends that is working through some limiting beliefs on like feeling worthy enough
Mhm.
and worthy enough to like start dating again. And, I started to ask her, like, what's your mindset around dating? Like, what do you feel? What do you think? It's like, oh, dating's disgusting. And like, there's all these guys, blah, blah. And I'm like, whoa. Like, wait a minute. Let's change this.
Yeah.
What if we go, dating is fun? I'm going to meet the love of my life. What if we start changing that story? We just completely rewiring it. But I can't change that story for you. I can sit here and remind you and show you all these different techniques you can do to remind yourself.
Right.
So when you start changing your story, there's tons of different ways you can do it. You can write it out. You can literally voice record it and listen to it on repeat.
Right.
You get to change it. But if you're not ready to change it, no one can do it for you.
Right. Yeah, I've told that to so many people. It's like psychologists, psychiatrists, any help.
It
really
works in like a rehab situation all the time.
Yeah, like
we always say it.
Yeah, like when you think about the psychiatrist and all that stuff, they do nothing to you for you. You are actually fixing yourself.
Yep.
All we can do is guide your mind, and that's why I always stand off. Like that person you're talking about, her perspective is so
Off.
different than anything else. Unless you change the perspective, and that's what inspiration really does. Inspiration, all it does is change your perspective. There's going to be some quotes that whatever, but then there's that one quote, and most quotes, exactly. You always say, "Oh, that's true." Like you already know it. You don't go like, "Really? No, life is short. No way." You know what I mean? Like you don't question it. You just go, "That's true." Every quote that you read, you're gonna go, "No, that's true." And all it was, once you change your perspective, then it's easier to make that decision. And so for that person, it's just like, oh my God, like you really have to change that, or else you're never going to make that decision ever. And again, it's that cause, right? That's the cause. What makes you think that way? Like, why are you thinking that way? Why do you think that? Well, because this and that. Like, all right, let's start there. So that's why you think it's this. So we need to fix that.
Right.
Because we can talk about all the dating and all this stuff. And you know what I figured out? Questions are the best way to ensure that it's coming from them. You know how you say like they have to do it?
Yes.
You can say, if you say it in, dude, you have to go date. You have to go out there. You have to get yourself
They're just
out
going to go,
there.
I know.
Yeah.
They'll never do it.
When you say a statement, that's what you get. But when you go, hey friend, so I know you have that perspective that you think it's this and this, but what do you think would make you be able to go out there? They don't think about, yeah, but you don't answer with, yeah, but you just go, I don't know, I guess if I start doing this, all of a sudden, solution. The only way to get the answers is you have to answer the question. If you don't ask the question, and the thing is, when you ask a question, it comes from them. You're not telling them, you should really do this, you should really do that. But when you go like, so what's stopping you from doing this and accomplishing that? Like, what exactly is stopping you? And so it goes from there. And I've noticed that that's actually the more powerful way. And one of the strongest, for me, the shortest and quickest question when people are complaining the shit out of their lives and just telling me and bombarding me with it is, now what?
Yeah, now what?
I listened to all your bullshit. Like, got it. That sucks. This sucks. Got it. Yep. Well, now what? And when you ask that, all of a sudden they go, oh, like, all right, I guess I gotta do this. I gotta do that. Changes from why me, why this world, this and that, to solution mindset.
Yep.
And that's when you start going next and next and next. But yeah, we're always going over.
Yeah, we always go over our time limit. We just
An hour and
bullshit,
five.
and that's what happens.
No, because it's so interesting, right? To learn about each other's mindsets,
Mhm.
your stories. Your stories is really what makes the difference, because I'm hoping people that are watching would just kind of relate. People that were in bad relationships, people that are just in a family household that are like, oh, they don't believe in me. Like, this chick left a community, like a whole world
Mhm.
of all she knows is this, with a freaking 6th grade education, but you can't leave your little household that you can come back to at any time. At any time. Couldn't leave though. And so when people hear your stories, I'm hoping it changes their perspective, and then getting them to go like, okay, so that's what she did. She made a decision and just kind of planned it out. And people don't understand. You're never going to be the same person ever.
Mm-mm.
Ever. You're always going to evolve. You're always going to change. So it's like, it's just better if you're in control of it though, or if you put in more effort, really.
So I know you said you had one thing you wanted to put out there about what's going on next with you. So
Yeah.
go for it.
Yeah, so I launched my podcast. It's called The Emily Adams Show, and I do have a lot of different inspirational speakers. Also share just a lot of different tips that have helped me grow mentally and really grow my mindset to become the person I am today. And I do share like some things from the past, because doing the inner child work is also important to grow as a person. So I have a podcast. I'm also in the middle of writing a book, and stay tuned for that. And I am also launching like an 8-week live course training for anyone that really wants to start changing their mindset. If they're thinking about switching careers, or maybe they're thinking about becoming an entrepreneur, or for those that are struggling in relationships and just family, and want to overall understand how their minds work and how they can get their mind to work for them to live their best life.
Awesome.
Awesome.
Yeah, so everybody go visit emilyadams.net. You'll get all her links to her Instagram and all that stuff over there. She's really awesome. So we're going to keep you in our list of speakers. So if there's anything going on, or, let us help you also, because our main mission is to help people. So if there's a school in your area that you really want, like you just want to, let's end this bullshit suicide. And it's because their mindset is just off. That's the only thing, right? To think like they're going to be the same people in high school. It's like, don't commit suicide. Don't do it. But anyway, let us know if there's any schools, venues, things like that, because then we can help you raise funds for it. We can ask.
Our goal.
That's so, because what we know is there's people like you that are helpful and want to help different people. And the thing is, it's tough to afford when you're doing it for free for everybody. And so to me, I'm like, well, what if we raise the funds to be able to help people more by paying for people like yourself to go to these different events or different venues like schools, military bases, rehab centers. So if there's any places like that you'd like to get on, like, just want to raise money for, so we can send you there, that we're totally on board for that, because we want to just send as many people, speakers, as possible, because there's just nothing like one-on-one, when you actually go there and stuff. And even if you're doing like Zoom or whatever online, if we can help pay for someone's course to do that, things like that. And I think that's that's what we're really trying to do. So, but anyway, thank you so much for
thank you so
your
much
time.
Thank you for having me.
Sharing your story.
And being that open book,
Of course.
letting us know that some of the things on TV are actually true about the Amish and some are not.
There's drinking, smoking, drugs, like it's all there. It's just like
lies. It's the mainstream media, man. No, thank you so much for sharing your stories and helping us inspire more people. And we'll really look forward to like working more with you in the future and doing other things.
Definitely.
Yeah. So everybody, hope you guys learned something.
We're
and
signing off.
make a decision, because
Yeah.
all this is nothing unless you do. So,
That's it.
all right, see you guys.
See you guys. Thank you so much, Emily.
Thank you.
Bye.